Welcome to the very first episode of Fright Note Originals. This is where we bring you original horror stories, tales of darkness, mystery, and terror that you won't find anywhere else. Every week, we'll plunge into a world of shadows, secrets, and the chilling unknown. So if you crave stories that linger in your mind long after the screen goes black, subscribe to Fright Note and hit the notification bell so you'll never miss what waits for you in the dark. Tonight, we begin with the story of Amelia Vargas, a nurse haunted by past mistakes, who takes a night shift at an abandoned asylum. She's given one warning: follow the rules or face the consequences. Welcome to the rules of Black Hollow Asylum. I never believed that buildings could hold memories. That stone and steel could soak up fear like a sponge until it began to drip back out, poisoning the air. But that was before I took a job at Black Hollow Asylum. My name is Amelia Vargas. I'm 29 years old, and 2 years ago, I was a registered nurse at St. Mercy Hospital. I used to think I was good at my job, maybe even great. The fast pace, the emergencies, the feeling that I was saving lives every day. I thought I could handle anything. Then Owen Foster died under my watch. He was only 15. A simple surgery, they said. Textbook. But I missed something. A subtle sign. A slight change in his oxygen saturation. And when his heart flatlined in recovery, I froze. My colleagues tried everything, but he was gone. The hospital cleared me legally. No negligence, the review said. But it didn't matter. I lost my license, my confidence, and any chance of being a nurse again. Since then, I'd been surviving on part-time jobs and temp work. My savings were gone. My rent was 2 months overdue. And every time I closed my eyes, I saw Owen's face. So when I saw the ad for night patient observer, $65 hour, housing assistance provided, I laughed. Black Hollow Asylum. Even the name felt cursed. I'd heard the rumors growing up, patients screaming at night, secret experiments, staff who vanished without a trace. But $65 an hour was enough to keep me off the street. I sent in my resume the same night. 2 days later, I was sitting in a sleek downtown office under flickering fluorescent lights, waiting for my interview. Meeting Dr. Harlow. The door opened and a man stepped in, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my yearly salary. "Miss Vargas," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Dr. Lennox Harlow." He was in his 40s, lean and tall, with hair the color of steel shavings and eyes so pale it looked almost silver. His voice was smooth, deliberate, as though every word was chosen carefully. "I understand you're seeking employment," he said. "Yes, sir." "You're aware this position involves overnight monitoring at the Black Hollow facility?" "I've heard stories," I admitted. "Stories are what people tell themselves to explain the things they're afraid to face." He opened a folder and slid a sheet of paper across the table. "These are the rules for your shift. You will memorize them. Failure to follow these rules can result in consequences." "What kind of consequences?" I asked. Dr. Harlow tilted his head slightly, as if curious why I'd even ask. Nothing you need to worry about, as long as you follow the rules. The ride to Black Hollow. That night, a black SUV arrived outside my crumbling apartment building. The driver didn't speak a word during the hour-long drive through rain-soaked highways. By the time we pulled up to the asylum gates, my stomach was knotted. Black Hollow Asylum loomed out of the darkness like something out of a nightmare. 3 stories of red brick, streaked black with water stains, windows boarded over or shattered. Ivy hung from the eaves like grasping fingers. The sign above the gates was rusted and barely legible. A single flickering lamp cast shadows across the massive wooden doors, which were studded with iron bolts and looked more like the entrance to a fortress than a hospital. As the SUV pulled away, I felt truly alone for the first time in my life. Inside Black Hollow, the lobby smelled of mildew and chemicals. My footsteps echoed off high ceilings, decorated with flaking plaster and ancient light fixtures. 2 security guards appeared, both in navy uniforms. New hire? One of them said. He was broad-shouldered, with a bristly gray beard and tired eyes. His name tag read Frank. "I'm Amelia," I said. "First night." Frank eyed me with a mixture of pity and caution. "You read the rules yet?" "Not really," he snorted. "Read 'em and follow 'em. That's the only way you'll get through a night here." A younger guard stepped forward. She was slender, with dark hair pulled into a ponytail and eyes darting nervously around the lobby. "I'm Mira," she said. "Don't worry. It's creepy, but it's not all bad. Unless you break the rules." I laughed weakly. "You guys are messing with me, right?" "Wish we were," Frank muttered. "The rules." Frank led me to a small room with flickering monitors showing grainy black and white footage of hallways and patient rooms. He handed me a thick envelope labeled Night, Shift Protocols. I opened it and read the list inside. Never turn off the lights in the main hall. After 2 a.m., if you hear a patient calling your name, do not respond. Never look into the observation window of room 313, no matter what you hear. Remain inside the security office between 303 and 309A. If you hear footsteps behind you in Ward C, do not turn around. If Eleanor Cade appears, speak politely. Never ask how she died. I looked up, heart hammering. "Who's Eleanor Cade?" I asked. Frank and Mira exchanged a look so uneasy it made my skin crawl. "She's someone who used to be here," Frank said. "Just don't talk to her if you can help it. And definitely don't ask how she died." Dr. Harlow's arrival. A door creaked open, and Dr. Harlow stepped into the office as though he'd been waiting in the shadows. "Miss Vargas," he said, "I see you've met the team. Remember, Black Hollow has its peculiarities. Follow the rules, and you'll be safe. Break them, and the consequences will be unfortunate. What exactly happens if I break them?" I demanded. Harlow only smiled. "Cold and perfect. Enjoy your shift." He turned and disappeared into the darkness of the hallway. I clutched the rule sheet in trembling hands. Outside the security office, the asylum seemed to sigh, the pipes groaning as though the building itself was alive. And deep down, I knew this was a mistake. But I needed the money. I stared at the bank of ancient security monitors, trying to convince myself that the rules were nothing but overblown safety precautions. Yet deep down, I knew they weren't. Frank was still in the chair beside me, drumming his fingers on the console. He seemed uneasy tonight, more so than when we first met. Myra hovered near the door, chewing her fingernail until it was raw. The clock above the monitors ticked toward midnight, each second echoing off the peeling plaster walls. "So, what exactly do we do all night?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. Frank snorted. "Mostly walk the halls, check doors, listen for noises, and remember the rules. That's the big part. And if we hear things," I said, lowering my voice. Frank sighed. "Ignore him. Or pray the first rounds." At 12:05 Myra beckoned me out of the office. "Come on. I'll show you the main halls." We stepped into the corridor. The smell hit me immediately, a mix of bleach, rust, and something sweet and rotten lurking just beneath. The tiles were cracked, the grout stained an ugly brown. Mira's flashlight cast long shadows across door after door, each marked with a faded brass number plate. Some doors were padlocked. Others had been nailed shut with planks of rotting wood. "We don't go past the east wing," Myra whispered. "NeuroSight has it sealed off." "Why?" "Because that's where Ward C is. And because of room 313. Ward C." Mira stopped me outside a huge double door, marked Ward C, authorized personnel only. The doors were chained together with industrial padlocks. Still, I felt a cold breeze seeping out through the gap between them, as though something was exhaling on the other side. "Never go in there," Mira said. "Even if you hear someone screaming for help. But what if someone's really trapped?" "They're not," she whispered. "Not anyone living, anyway." Hallway disturbances. We continued through the main corridor. Something flickered at the far end, a light, popping, buzzing, dying, then sputtering back to life. That's when I heard it. A voice, soft and distant. "Amelia." I froze. My heart leapt into my throat. "Did you hear that?" I whispered. Myra grabbed my wrist so tightly it hurt. "Don't answer it." The voice called again, closer this time. "Amelia, help me." My chest constricted, because the voice didn't belong to a stranger. It belonged to Owen. The voice of Owen. I stumbled backward, clutching my chest. "No, that's impossible. He's dead." "Don't say anything," Myra hissed. "They know things. They use it against you." The voice echoed once more, softer, pleading. "Please, don't leave me." It faded into silence. Myra exhaled shakily. "They'll try to trick you. It's not really him." Back at the office, when we returned to the security room, Frank looked up sharply. "You hear something?" "A voice," I said, "calling my name." Frank scowled and reached into his pocket, pulling out a battered rosary. He handed it to me. "Keep this on you," he said, "even if you're not religious." I stared at the rosary. "Are we in danger?" I asked. Frank gave a humorless chuckle. Danger's not the right word. Not all of them want to hurt you. Some just want you to see them. The monitors flicker. As he spoke, the security monitors flickered violently, static rolling across the screens. One by one, images began to fade back in. Camera 4, a hallway, empty except for a wheelchair that slowly rolled backward on its own. Camera 7, a room where shadows crawled across the ceiling like insects. Camera 11, flickered black, then flashed an image so fast it made me gasp, a pale face pressed close to the lens, eyes dark hollows, hair hanging wet around her cheeks. Eleanor Cade, who was that? I asked, heart pounding. Frank swallowed. That's Eleanor Cade. Myra crossed herself. Don't talk to her. Don't even think about her if you can help it. Why? I demanded. Because she knows things about you. Things you've never said out loud. I shivered. The first encounter. At 1:37 Myra insisted we check the supply corridor. We crept through a narrow hallway, cluttered with broken gurneys and boxes labeled property of NeuroSight. Halfway down the corridor, a shape stepped from the shadows. A woman in a thin, stained hospital gown. Her skin was pale as bone. Dark hair clung to her cheeks as though she just stepped out of water. Her eyes shimmered with something almost metallic. Amelia, she whispered. I felt every hair on my arms stand up. Eleanor Cade, Myra hissed under her breath. I've been waiting for you, Eleanor said softly. You're different from the others. You don't belong here. Don't answer her, Myra whispered, but Eleanor kept talking. You're not the first one they've brought here. NeuroSight is lying to you. Ask Harlow what he's doing in the lower levels. My lips parted. What's in the lower levels? I asked before I could stop myself. Myra squeezed my arm so hard it felt bruised. Don't talk to her. Eleanor's face shifted, eyes blackening like tar. You broke the rule, Amelia. Vanishing act. The lights overhead flickered violently. When they steadied, Eleanor was gone. All that remained was a faint puddle of water on the floor, as though she'd melted into it. Back in the office, Myra practically dragged me back to the office. Frank was pacing, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Did she talk to you? He demanded. I nodded shakily. She said Harlow's hiding something. Frank's face darkened. We don't talk about what's downstairs, ever. But why? Frank cut me off. Because that's not our job. Our job is to stay alive. And staying alive means following the rules. Approaching 3 a month. On the monitors, the hallways seemed longer than before. Doors that should have been closed were swinging open on their own. Mira was crying silently. Frank was muttering prayers under his breath. And deep inside me, a voice whispered that I'd just stepped into something far worse than a haunted building. The clock read 2:56 a.m. In 7 minutes, the time would come to lock ourselves in and hope the rules would save us. The clock on the wall above the monitors crawled past. 3:02 a.m. Frank slammed the door shut and threw the heavy deadbolt. The security office felt like a bunker. Cold, tiny, airless. Outside, the building seemed to exhale. A distant creaking echoed through the pipes, like bones shifting under ancient skin. "Whatever happens," Frank said, eyes locked on mine, "do not open that door. Not for anyone, even if it's me screaming." I swallowed hard, my throat so dry it hurt. "What happens between 3:03 and 3:09? I asked. Frank hesitated, as though considering how much truth to reveal. "That's when the walls thin out, when they try to come through." "They?" I whispered, but Frank said nothing else. 3:03 Amelia digital clock blinked 3:03, and all hell broke loose. The pounding first came the pounding. A single heavy thud rattled the steel security door. Then again, louder. Myra whimpered, hands clamped over her ears. "It's starting," she whispered. Outside, a voice howled, "Let him in! Please, oh God, please!" It was a man's voice, raw with terror. "That's not real, right?" I said. Frank didn't answer. The pounding intensified, booming like fists of iron on the door. A woman screamed outside, "Help me! They're coming! Don't leave me here!" Her voice twisted halfway through the sentence into something guttural, almost inhuman. "That's not a woman anymore," Frank said quietly. "No matter how much she sounds like one." A familiar voice. The voices changed again. This time, soft, frightened. "Amelia, please help me." My blood ran ice cold. It was Owen's voice. "Stop it." I hissed. "He's dead. He's..." Frank grabbed my arm so hard it hurt. "Don't answer him." "But it's him." Frank shook me. "It's not. If you open that door, you'll be opening it for everything out there. And trust me, you don't want to see what's really on the other side." Tears blurred my vision. The pounding outside became rhythmic, as though something enormous was hurling itself at the door. Something slithering. Suddenly, the space under the door went black. An oily shadow spread outward, creeping like spilled ink. It began to slither upward along the walls, leaving a greasy stain wherever it touched. Myra shrieked and backed away. Frank crossed himself and began muttering in Spanish. The shadow seemed alive, reaching tendrils toward the light fixtures. One flickered and exploded, showering sparks. "Is that Eleanor?" I cried. "No," Frank said, voice shaking. "That's older than Eleanor. Keep your eyes away from it." But I couldn't look away. Within the blackness, I saw flashes, images that stabbed into my mind like ice. Owen's body on an operating table, chest rising and falling as if trying to breathe again. A screaming woman strapped to a gurney, her eyes bleeding black. Dr. Harlow, standing in a circle of flickering red lights, chanting words I couldn't understand. The door handle turned suddenly. The steel handle of the door began to twist, rattling as though someone was trying to force it open. "Amelia," Owen's voice whispered through the door. "It's so cold. I'm so scared. Please." My hand twitched toward the door. Frank slammed his palm against the metal. "Don't do it." Myra collapsed in the corner, sobbing. "It's worse if you let them in. It's so much worse," she wailed. A glimpse of Eleanor. Then, in the middle of the chaos, the monitors flickered back to life. On camera 11, Eleanor Cade stood in the hallway, bathed in flickering light. Her hair hung weightily around her face. Her eyes glowed silver. She raised one hand and pressed it gently against the camera lens, as though trying to reach through. Her lips moved, though no sound came out. Frank hit a button, cutting the feed. "Don't watch her too long," he said hoarsely. "She'll pull you through the screens if you let her." 3:09 amen. And then as abruptly as it began, the pounding ceased. The oily shadow hissed and retreated under the door. The screams dwindled into silence. The lights stabilized, humming faintly. Frank checked the clock. 3:09 A. "We made it through another night," he murmured. Mira wiped her eyes, trembling. "I hate that time. I hate it. Questions and secrets." I slumped into the chair, shaking. "Frank, what the hell is this place? Why would NeuroSight keep operating here if it's this dangerous?" Frank shot me a dark look. "Because there's money in secrets. And this place has plenty." "Secrets like what?" I demanded. "Experiments? Ghosts? What the hell is happening here?" Frank hesitated, jaw working as though chewing invisible words. This asylum used to treat violent patients. But in the 70s, they started bringing people here for other reasons. People who claimed they saw things. People who vanished. NeuroSight bought the building cheap. They're still studying whatever those patients were seeing. "Studying it?" I said. "Or making it worse?" Frank didn't answer. A hidden message Myra suddenly tugged at my sleeve. "You talked to Eleanor?" she whispered. "Yes," I admitted. "She said Harlow's hiding something in the lower levels." Frank stiffened. "Forget you ever heard that," he said. "Nothing good comes from the lower levels. Then why do we keep working here?" I cried. Frank met my eyes, his voice low. "Because we're stuck. Once you're in this place, it doesn't let you go." The monitors show a warning. The cameras flickered again. On camera 7, a message appeared, scrawled in something dark and tripping across a hallway wall. "Don't trust Harlow." My blood froze. "Did you see that?" I gasped. Frank reached for the console, trying to shut off the feed. "Forget it," he barked. "We don't talk about Harlow, ever." "Why not?" I shouted. "Is he even human?" Frank stared at me, eyes haunted. "Some nights, I'm not sure." Silence settles over Black Hollow, outside the security office. Black Hollow seemed quiet again, but the quiet felt wrong, like a held breath, waiting to be released. The digital clock blinked over to 3:16 Monday, and deep inside, I knew that the worst was still to come. By 3:16 a.m., Black Hollow was so quiet I could hear my own breath. Frank slumped in his chair, exhausted. Mira huddled in the corner, trembling. I kept watching the monitors. Shadows seemed to pulse, waiting. "I can't do this," I whispered. "None of us can," Frank murmured. An alarm blared. Red lights strobed over the screens. "Ward C," Mira gasped. "The doors are open." On camera 5, the chains swung loose. doors yawning into blackness. From down the halls came voices. "Amelia, come see." "That's Owen," I cried. Frank grabbed my arm. "It's not him. Don't you understand? They'll use him to drag you in." A cold wind rushed through the office. Papers flew everywhere. Then she appeared. Eleanor Cade, pale and dripping water onto the floor. "Amelia, they brought you here for a reason." Frank stumbled back. "Don't listen to her." Eleanor fixed me with silver eyes. "NeuroSight knows you've seen the other side. The night Owen died, I'm just a nurse," I croaked. "You're a bridge," Eleanor whispered. "They want to open the lower levels." Suddenly, Dr. Harlow stepped into the room. Perfect suit, glacial smile. "That's enough, Eleanor." He waved his hand. Eleanor screamed and exploded into a shower of water, vanishing. Frank lunged at Harlow. "You promised to keep this contained." Harlow sneered. "Black Hollow is a convergence point. Amelia is the key." His eyes glowed silver. His skin rippled, inhuman shapes squirming beneath. "You're not human," I whispered. The shadows boiled around him, writhing like serpents. Mira screamed as glass burst overhead. Harlow raised his hands and spoke words that scraped my skull. "You belong to me, Amelia." But deep inside, I felt something spark. Cold light radiated through my chest. I rose to my feet. "No, I don't." Harlow's eyes widened. Eleanor's voice whispered in my mind, "Use it, or this place will consume you." I flung my hands outward. A blast of white light exploded from me. Harlow shrieked, twisting into static, and vanished. The shadows recoiled and fled into cracks in the walls. Silence fell. Frank stared at me. "What the hell did you just do?" I fell to my knees, shaking. "I don't know, but I'm done letting this place control me." On the monitors, red letters appeared. "IT's not over." Frank sighed. "Welcome to Black Hollow, Amelia." Outside, dawn was breaking. But somehow, the asylum felt darker than ever. And that concludes the first terrifying chapter of Fright Note Originals. In Black Hollow Asylum, secrets still linger in the dark, and for Amelia Vargas, a nightmare has only begun. If you enjoyed this story and want more chilling tales every week, make sure to subscribe to Fright Note and hit that notification bell. Let me know in the comments. Would you ever spend a night in a haunted asylum for $65 an hour? Until next time, sleep tight. And remember, the rules exist for a reason. Break them at your own risk.